Fabulous. Y'all give me just a moment. We have a PowerPoint that we want to walk through with y'all. We will also be monitoring the chat, and I think Carrie is set up to help us with that as well. But sorry, Sofina, let me pull you off screen there.
All right, Doc, it's all you. Classroom culture, who needs it? And the answer to that question is that we all need it, okay? So as we move,
We lost you. You're muted.
I can't hear you.
There's always something going on around us,
There you
guys.
go.
Yeah, we
got
had some technical difficulties. It randomly muted us and quit sharing my screen. So give me just a moment to reload us.
and
we will go again.
Okay, so in the chat, please name one food that you will not eat.
Or what your favorite drink is at Sonic. Your choice. But we want to hear from you. Ooh, Alex says tuna casserole. Veal with Diane. Christina's typing for us. Green beans. Laura, I'm with you. I think the only way that I have found that I will actually eat green beans is if you bake them. Olives, yep, agreed. Raw tomatoes, diet cherry limeade. Carrie, you're a lady after my own heart. I love me some diet cherry limeade. Have you ever added vanilla into it? It's wonderful. No sweet potatoes. Ooh, Julie, I have a recipe for you. Might be something you try sometimes. Eat everything. I love it. No steak. Oh, Cindy, I won't tell you what I have for lunch today then. Manuela mussels. Okay, guys, so you're probably sitting here going, what are we doing? So one of the things that Doc and I want to visit with y'all about today is building classroom culture. Not just to a point that your students are hearing what you say learning-wise, but actually being an active participant and joining in. So before we introduced ourselves, we wanted to give you a chance to introduce yourself and tell us something about you. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I was in the classes where they would make me introduce myself and say, tell me something interesting about yourself. I don't know about y'all, but my brain would go completely blank. And I'm like, there's nothing interesting about myself. My name is Jennifer, and that's all I have to tell you. So what we wanted to do was provide a couple of prompts where we would have the chance to know you along the way. Maddie says okra. We got some cucumbers going on. So thank y'all for starting off in participation with us. With that, let us tell you about us. So as I mentioned on the way in, my name, Jennifer Brazel, Doc over here, Dr. Lori English, and we work very closely together as ACC math faculty. Of course, as most people at ACC, we wear multiple hats. Lori is also the faculty fellow for Center of Success. I am also the honors program director and STEM faculty mentor. But our focus today, building this classroom culture, comes from our extensive experience in the co-requisite or developmental courses. We are always working to enhance our strategies for student success and building up that positive learning environment. So with that, Doc, I'm gonna hand it over to you.
Okay, so as we begin the discussion of classroom culture, there are some questions that we hope to answer, and we will circle back to these same questions at the end. So the first question is, why is this important? Do I need it? And if it is, how can I get it? Where do I shop to buy this? The second question is this relevant to any classroom, or is it only relevant to K-12, or is it something we need to look at the higher ed level? Third thing, is this going to impact my success rates? Because they're always on me about that kind of stuff. The next thing would be, what are the benefits to the students of having good classroom culture? And the last thing is, what impact can my class make if I tweak and make some little changes? Okay, now, our program is titled Classroom Culture. Many of you have also heard the phrase classroom climate. And you must be wondering, okay, is this just semantics or is there a difference? And the answer is yes, there is a difference. Okay. Classroom climate talks about the atmosphere, the moods, the tone, and the interactions in your classroom. Okay. That is your climate. And you set that even starting from day one. The exercise that we just did about sonic drinks and food we don't like are actually questions that we ask in our classes on day one, because the kids will talk about that and they will see, oh, it's okay to speak in here. And it gives them a freedom and breaks them in. That sets part of the climate in our classrooms. Now, culture is the foundation of a successful classroom. You set the tone, you maintain good communication, you maintain clear expectations, and the students get to work together and they feel free to do that. So with the culture, you build a small community within your classroom. All right.
So what we're really hoping to do today is help each of you, as well as enhance ourselves, in the transition between the sage from the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. What we're hoping to give you today is ways to build an environment where you're inviting those students to be active learners, active participants in your class, where you're helping to build their confidence. But I don't know about y'all, but I get to where I really don't like teaching to blank faces, right? That lecture format, that sage on the stage, it's time to transition it if we haven't already. So with this conversation, as we're kind of introducing classroom climate and culture, we want to hear from y'all. What are some things that you're currently doing within your classroom, or maybe have done in the past, to help facilitate those active learning strategies, or inviting those students in to be a part of your class? How are you building a positive environment for your students? So unmute, visit with us, drop some thoughts in the chat. What do you think?
Okay, we have a few people typing. Have you ever had a bad experience in a classroom and you walked in there and you just thought, oh my, this just feels unwelcoming? Tell us about it. Just don't tell us it was in one of our classes.
You don't know this about me yet, but I am the instructor that's willing to sit here and just stare at you in silence until we get some feedback, right? We want to welcome us in. So Julie says, getting the students to talk each day, inviting questions, and catch my mistakes. I love that. So Julie, how do you get those students to talk?
Well, for me, it kind of starts out like what you did. I actually have a fear of learning or saying my students' names incorrectly. So I have them actually introduce each other to me so I can have them say it first. And then they also kind of tell me something about them. So they're introducing each other the first day. And then each day I'm having them doing like a warm-up problem or a discuss this question with someone next to you. And if they don't want to start talking, then I kind of start pretending like I'm one of the students and saying like jibber jabberish stuff, and that kind of makes them laugh, and then they start talking. Or I'll give them like a sentence stem, like oh, I think it's like this because da 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 da. And it kind of breaks up that fear of talking to the person next to them. And they get to that they actually make their own study groups. They make their own little groups in the class. They get to, okay, I don't like this person. I'm going to change seats since it's next to this person who I saw was working well. And they kind of move themselves around and really, like you said, make that culture and that expectations in the climate.
Julie, one of the things you said, I want to go back to because it is so, so powerful. You talked about pretending like a student and talking in that jibber jabber. You also put in the chat that you like to be in a situation where they are allowed to catch your mistakes. Guys, I cannot begin to stress to you how important that is. Students often look at their instructor on this pedestal of perfection. And being willing to be human in front of your students, being willing to say, y'all, I can't spell worth the flip. I tell them day one, I cannot spell. That's why they have spell check. I'm good at numbers, not in these crazy letters and things. If you catch something, please tell me. I'm human. And guess what? If I can make a mistake on the board, do you think it's okay for you to make a mistake? Well,
Exactly.
absolutely. Absolutely. And the fact that you're willing to make a mistake opens those students up for that opportunity to be willing and comfortable in the classroom to be a part. We had someone else say, I use colored response cards, multiple choice questions. Students can respond. So they show me, yep, I love it. They get, if there's not a consensus, then students to discuss with each other before voting again. My chat, for whatever reason, says that's an unknown user, but whoever said that, amen, absolutely. Love getting that instant feedback from the students and getting them to show their cards.
One of the things I do in my classroom is I use thumbs up, thumbs to the side, or thumbs down. And they can tell me that, and no one else in the room can see that. So I say, show me your thumbs. Do you understand what we did in this problem? And if I get sideways thumbs or down thumbs, I know I need to do another example to re-emphasize the processes.
Absolutely. Alex, you cracked me up. I'm the reverse, he says. My math will be wrong. Hey, you know what? We all have our strengths and our weaknesses. The whole point is we're all human, right? Tom, you bring up a great point. He talked about, on those cards, if you're doing color cards and things like that in your classroom, make sure it's not just the color, because we do have students and faculty who are colorblind. So great discussion. Guys, I'm going to ask you one more piece of this, though. On the slide, it says the good, the bad, and the ugly. Have you been in environments, whether it was you as a student or maybe in a workplace, don't tell us if it's ACC, where that classroom culture was broken down, was destroyed by the actions of that leader or by that teacher?
I have, as a student, had times where, not at ACC, where the teacher would be pushing, or trying to encourage some kind of feedback or some kind of, student participation, and nobody wants to. And the teacher starts to, it becomes clear that they're taking it personally and getting kind of irritated, and they start kind of making little snide comments and things like that. And of course, now I'm on the other side of it. I'm the one in front of the students, and I understand that that's coming from at least it could be coming from a place of fear of like, oh no, I'm
Right.
losing control of my class. I can't even get them to respond. And so it can come out in toxic ways at times. But
Absolutely.
I've been on the student side of that, and it makes it even worse, because any student that might have been on the threshold of speaking up,
Mhm.
when they get that kind of not verbal abuse, I won't go that far, but it's on that spectrum
Right.
of it makes them even less likely to say anything, because then they feel like they're being bullied into it, and nobody likes that.
Exactly. So, guys, I'm in a class right now. I've got a co-requisite course, which means we've got our developmental students in a college math course, and we hang out for 3 hours a day, every single day. Guys, I use all of these active strategies that we're going to be talking about today, and it's still difficult to get them to talk. And so getting to where you can communicate with them and invite that conversation beyond sometimes just the words, like Doc was talking about thumbs up, or I think it was Carrie that was talking about the little cards where you can assess communication and building that positive, open culture comes from strategies in all different modalities. So with that being said, thank y'all for participating. I'm going to turn it back over to Doc to talk about some 7 dimensions of that classroom climate that we're trying to build.
Okay, now, I'm not going to read this to you. And if you have any comments about them, please put it in the chat and mention the big word at the top of the Post-it note. All right, the first one is personalization. We want them to know that they are not faceless bodies in our class. We want them to know that we care about their learning, okay? Involvement. They feel welcome to participate. I know that when I have a student that corrects one of my math mistakes, hey, Doc, you dropped a negative sign on the 3rd step. You know, that changes the answer. I know that they are safe and secure in my room because they're calling me out for a mistake. We work in partners and we work in groups in my classroom. Some of you would know this is a new thing for me to try. And
I'm really proud of you. I'm just
I love what I have seen that it does for the students. And I love hearing the conversations they have about why each other's answers are right or wrong. Students will enjoy coming to your class and they will do anything in the world not to miss if they have safety, security, and the feeling of community in your classroom. Now, one thing that has to be present is that you have to come off as organized, whether you are or not. And that goes all the way down to your Blackboard. Can they find things easily, or do they have to click through 5 windows to find their assignment? None of that is going to make them feel safe or secure. It just provokes a lot of questions. We're always encouraged to use innovation, and sometimes innovation can be going back to the basics. And that is what Jennifer and I have done in our developmental classes is we have gone back to the basics, used a lot of scaffolding and tying things to previous knowledge and a lot of confidence building in our classes. And you will see students who have never spoken before start to participate in a class. One of the most moving comments I've ever received on my course evals was when a student wrote that she had always been an introvert, but I had given her a way with the thumbs up, thumbs down to participate in her own way. And then individualization, they can choose. They don't get a lot of choice in my room, except in they can always have a new partner just by shifting around to a different chair. Because I never assign the groups. I just tell them, get in groups of 3 or get in groups of 5 or something like that. So those are the dimensions of climate. Okay.
I want to add one thing there to that individualization. Doc made the comment about the group work that she does in her class. Guys, we are going to have students who love the idea of working in a group. We're going to have the students who hate working in groups. So if you're going to facilitate something like that, it's a very good active learning strategy. One of the things I try and do is give them a choice of if you want to work independently on the problems, that's fine. But your group, the 2 of you, the 3 of you paired up, when you're done with that problem, turn and check with each other. That way, that student who gets very anxious, very unsettled by the groups doesn't feel like they are backed into a corner. They get that individual or personalized choice because they get to pick how much they're actively being involved in that group.
We have at ACC not a majority by any means, but a significant number of students who come out of a homeschooled high school situation. And they've worked a lot of times on their own. And so that is their method of choice. But the student I have this semester who came out of a homeschool situation has learned to trust her fellow group members enough that she's actively working with them now. So I consider that a success.
Yeah, definitely a win. So at this point, you're probably saying, okay, we're talking about these concepts, we're talking about these categories of classroom climate. Give me some actual concrete examples of how this can be done. First, I know Doc mentioned a minute ago about that task orientation and student activities, making sure everything was very aligned, consistent, and clean. One of the suggestions I have for you is when you're setting up your Blackboard structure before the first day of the semester, ask someone else to look at it. So for me, that's my husband, because he doesn't know much about college algebra. He doesn't know much about ACC. He is a brand new, fresh set of eyes to look at my class. And I know if he can navigate through it, my students can too. But I know if he gets stuck on this step or trying to find this activity, my students will too. So don't hesitate to bring in that fresh set of eyes to check some of those things, especially when it comes to organization. Other things that Doc and I wanted to visit with you today about strategies for building this classroom climate are some of the things that we've adapted into our first day in the classroom. And just a reminder, I mentioned in our introduction that Doc and I spend a lot of time in the developmental education setting. I spend a lot of time in our co-requisite courses, particularly in college algebra, but have been in almost all of our entry-level math co-requisite courses. Doc has been, let me just say, an amazing godsend to our developmental education, particularly as she is supporting those students who are entering into the STEM pathway. I could talk for hours on that, but what you have to remember, the classroom setting that we're dealing with is students who are very low in confidence. These students are expecting to fail. Literally, they can get a 40 or a 50 on a test and celebrate because it wasn't as bad as they thought. What we do goes way beyond just teaching our content. These strategies, you don't have to be in a math class to be able to truly redefine the way one of your students looks at learning. So three of the things that we do, and this is the very first day of our class, is on the board or on the screen, you see three different pictures. The first one you see is the importance of smaller steps. And we talk about what it's like to feel like you're in day one. I somehow have to survive all 8 weeks of this college algebra course, right? Or this beginning algebra course, or whatever the case may be. And we talk about how most people, or most of us as instructors, want to believe that the ladder on the left, the ease of taking that steps and accomplishing that task and being successful in your course, we want to believe the ladder on the left displays our class. But in reality, and we're saying this to our students, we know that many of you feel like you're standing in front of the ladder on the right, where don't talk to me about 8 weeks from now. I can't even survive tomorrow. I can't even get to the first step. And so we're acknowledging for those students their own concerns and struggles as they're coming into this math class. Then we talk about how do we go from the ladder on the right to the ladder on the left for them. And that's where we start talking about the resources they have. That's how we start inviting them in to our office hours, to asking those questions. Tutoring, coaching. I often tell them, please do not be a hamster in my class this semester. And I say, what does a hamster do? Well, a hamster sits on a wheel and they run and run and run and run and they never get anywhere. To the point, at some point, for us as students, we give up. The moment you feel like you're starting this non-ending cycle of being a hamster on the wheel, stop and email me. And I tell them, I welcome your emails. I do not care if it is 2 a.m. You have a question on your math assignment, you stop and you email me. Now, friends, I'm asleep at 2 a.m. I am not answering your email, but I want that email waiting in my inbox so that the moment I open my email, I can stop, I can respond to you, and I can be there to support you in the process. That conversation and building up in them the expectation that they can email me, they can ask me questions, they don't have to wait for office hours. Paired with that third picture, Doc and I both do this. We say there is no such thing as a stupid question. The only stupid question in my class is the one that you're not willing to ask. We say 9 times out of 10, if you have a question, someone around you does also. But guess what? Even if you are the only student that has that question, in my classroom, you are valued, and I will be happy to answer that question for you. And of course, at this point, y'all are probably like, man, Brazel, this is a little deep. So at this point in the conversation with my students, that's when I say, you know what? If you want to ask me what 2 + 2 is, I'll tell you it's 22. And I look at them, and normally about half of them have smiled or chuckled. And I say, okay, thank you for, at least acknowledging my silly math joke. We all know 2 + 2 is 4. But truly, if you want to know what 2 + 2 is, there's no such thing as a stupid question in my class. These strategies, I realize we don't always have all the time in the world to teach our students. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if you aren't building up this positive culture for your students, in whatever way that looks like for you in your class, if you're not building up that positive culture, they're not going to learn to begin with. So taking the time, especially day one, to start setting this climate, teaching them to break the chains, to understand that they are not alone, that they do have resources, that they can be successful, and that you're going to be there to help walk them through it. It would blow your mind how much those students will believe with you and will overcome some of their own fears, be more willing to talk, to participate, to ask questions. So I know I've gotten a little long-winded.
Did you talk about number 2?
I didn't, because I know elephants are your favorite. So I'm going to turn that one over to you to share.
Okay, so number 2 is a picture of a grown elephant with a very tiny chain around its foot. That chain was put there when that elephant was a baby, and he or she was not able to have the strength to escape from the chain. Now, if you look at that elephant now, we would all know it weighs a lot of pounds, and it could easily snap that small chain. But it won't, because it learned it couldn't break the chain when it was a child. Okay, if that sounds like some of the students in your classrooms, okay, then you're correct, because in our rooms, they have learned early on, I'm not good at math. I'm not good at this, and I just have to sweat it out. And I just have to pass. That's all I need to do. I've had those students come in my developmental class and walk out with A's and go forth and graduate from ACC.
Mhm.
And it is the largest thing you can do for them, is to break those chains.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with this conversation, if you're looking to grow this more inviting culture in your classroom, if you're wanting to invite them in and get them to where they're actively participating, they're feeling more welcome,
The warm, fuzzy stuff.
they start getting the warm, fuzzy stuff, right? Which one would you actually start with? Would we focus in on classroom climate? Would we focus in on classroom culture? How do we actually start, or where do we start if we want to start building this positive environment? Well, climate. Climate drives culture. Doc, you want to visit with us some about culture?
Sure. Okay, so ways you can, after you have established a positive climate, which literally can be done on day one. Don't
Right.
you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And reinforce throughout, right?
And reinforce throughout. Ways to boost culture are having your Blackboard open early, because that helps those nervous students to look in there. They see a welcome module, they hear you talk, they know what your face looks like, and that just establishes a warm connection for them. Send them an introductory email. Don't make it institutionalized and structured and all of that, throw in a few things that are a smile somehow. Okay.
If, Doc, I'm gonna interrupt you just a second. If you're not sure what that might look like, I spend a lot of time, not only in the co-requisite world, but also the online world, where seeing some of these students face to face is a little bit different than seeing them online. You can still do these same things online. So if you want just some examples of what an introductory email or a welcome video could look like, especially for online students, drop that in the chat, because I'm happy to share just some things that I utilize. Take it, trash it, keep it, whatever you want to do. But if you'd like an example of that, drop that in the chat as we're going.
And I'll give you a quick example. I'm teaching our low-level developmental course in math online for the very first time it's ever been offered outside of COVID. And one of my students emailed me before class started, and she had a question, and she said, I have to do well in this class. I'm a new parent and I have to set a good example for my baby girl. And so I answered her question, and then I said, don't forget to send me baby pictures. Every week she sends me baby pictures. And I've never seen her face to face, but I've established a positive relationship with that student, and she's pulling an A in my class right now. Okay. We need to establish that we don't believe in failure, and our communication needs to be timely. You can be encouraging in your emails. You can tell them you can do this, and they hear that very clearly. Now, our environment, we've already talked about having it be inclusive. That means that we use instructional strategies like group work or projects or community assignments where they can feel safe and interact with you and their peers. Again, organization of content is vital. Every population needs clear organization that is clean. We're going to be running some Blackboard organization courses as we adjust to a new Blackboard platform. And so if you need better tips on organizing your Blackboard, please feel free to join those sessions.
So in the chat, Manuela said that she plays asynchronous Kahoot, so some fun interactive quizzes with her online students. She said most of those students seem to love it, and that then they post in the leaderboard, then post the leaderboard in the announcements. Manuela, can I just say how much I love that? So you're also establishing a little bit of that friendly competition, playing into that competitive nature. So absolutely.
And in the light of friendly competition, back during the days of the HSI STEM grant, Julie Hyman would sponsor some review sessions for the 310 math class, and she did it in the form of a Jeopardy game. And we gave them a tutoring credit for going. Well, that has continued over after the grant left, and they now offer them in several classes. My students wouldn't miss Jeopardy to save their lives because they enjoy seeing math worked by a different person in a different environment. And they always tell me this was one of the best things I did to study for my test.
Guys, no joke, one of the co-rec classes I'm teaching this semester in Mini 1, I see them 12 hours a week for math, straight 3 hours a day. They'll leave my 12 hours worth of math and still go play Jeopardy with Julie and our incredible tutors at the Learning Center. So with that, we've been talking for a while. I love that y'all are already jumping some ideas into the chat. We would like to hear more. So as we've talked about this classroom climate and this classroom culture, let me recap just a minute. Classroom climate is those type things that we're doing to build the positive environment. As we do that consistently, as we hit the 7 dimensions of that climate, it begins to take concrete root as an actual classroom culture. Okay, so as we've been visiting and giving some of these ideas, unmute, keep dropping things in the chat. what are some things that you could try either now or at least to begin in Mini 2 to start building some of this environment?
I would like to say another thing that I did, but it
Yes.
was truly by accident. So I was trying to play around with groups in Blackboard. And so I created groups, and this was a face-to-face class. And at the end, I didn't do anything with it. Then on the evaluation, the student said, I love the groups because we used it after school to study together. And I'm like, wow, I didn't do anything other than create a group, and they used it. So even if you don't use it, I would still create groups in Blackboard because the students will use the collaborate and work together. So that
That is
also
awesome,
could
Manuela.
contribute.
Yeah,
So
that
it
is
doesn't take a lot of our
fabulous.
time.
So with what Manuela is talking about, those groups in Blackboard, as we transition full-fledged into Blackboard Ultra coming soon, those groups in Blackboard can automatically create a team group for your students. So that's going to be an even, a step above to create that learning environment. So I love that, Manuela. Y'all keep talking to us. What else do
Okay,
you use?
If any of you, Julie Hyman, would you drop your email in the chat, please? If any of you have a question about creating Jeopardy for your class, Cindy has dropped the website she uses in the chat, and Julie's going to put her email in there. You can always email her with questions about design and formatting and that sort of thing.
One more question for you guys as we're kind of brainstorming and talking. You've heard from us, actually several of us in the math world. Some of you that are in other genres of classrooms, what are some of the things that you do to invite your students into that participation or to build that belief in them? Kind of like the strategies we use on day one. What are some of the things that y'all do or could do?
Oh, come on. Some of you have some ideas.
Okay,
Don't
can you
sit-
hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Okay, well, I use some problem solving activities based on cooperative learning strategies. So I organize my students into what I call committees. I don't call them groups. So they
I like that.
work in a committee format. They have a facilitator, a recorder, timekeeper, and researchers in the group, usually 4, no more than 5 in the group. I give them a particular historical problem to deal with and to analyze, break down, sometimes based on a primary source material, like the Omaha platform of the Populist Party. And they break that down and what are the main issues and then why are they doing what they're doing, et cetera, et cetera. So they really, I've done this for years and I've found the students, and I've also used it with adults, with teachers and so on, where they solve realistic problems that existed in the past or current problems. The other thing I do is on projects, I give them a whole menu of options. So for example, some of my students are interested in becoming engineers. So one of the projects they can do is an architectural project where they do research on, say, the Hoover Dam. I'm sorry. They do research on the Hoover Dam, and then they have to submit that through the Blackboard portal, and then they have to do a model or some type of display or architectural design to go with it. So I've had good results with this. Students seem to really enjoy that. So that's
Thanks,
one thing.
Don. Yeah, that's awesome.
I will share with y'all one thing I did for a few years. I had a little dog. His name was Einstein. And my kids loved hearing about Einstein. And so during the semester, I would send out just some helpful hints before a test. But in the subject line, I would write message from Einstein. And so I would frame it as, hi, I'm Einstein. I wanted to tell you some things about my mama's test. And one semester, at the end of the semester, they signed a card for me, and they knew he loved Popeye's fried chicken. So they had bought a gift card for him so he could have some Popeyes fried chicken. And just breaking down that barrier, they would ask Einstein questions that they wouldn't dare ask me.
It's true. It's so true. So with this, I know that we only have about 10 minutes left. So Doc and I have one more example. I love the Einstein dog idea. Absolutely. One more example of something we do to set classroom climate and help build it into a classroom culture.
Okay, so on the first day, we have some memes about math, and there are plenty out there about any subject area. And we show them these memes and tell them to pick the one that they most relate to. Okay, and so these are the first two, and then these are the second two. So y'all type the number in the chat. We know some of you are not math folks. So how has your math experience been in the past?
Now I'm going to have to harass Doc a little bit because all of these are negative.
Okay,
Where's my positive now?
you told me to cut it out.
Oh, whoops.
Okay. She told me to get down to 4. So anyway,
So once again, there's 1 and 2. Here's 3 and 4. I have to go with Frank. 4, 4. When you solve a math problem 3 times, get a different answer each time. Absolutely. Whole class is fighting. Yep.
okay, so do you see how this is going to make them smile? This is going to make them realize that we do have humor. We do have touch with the real world. We're not just over in our closets working math problems all the time. And I've had students tell me, when you showed those memes, I knew this class was going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. So most of the strategies that we've been showing you today are something we actually just do day 1. This is part of our get to know each other, welcome.
Break down the walls.
Yeah, break down the walls and show them from day 1 that math doesn't have to be as scary of a place. And that, cannot tell you how many times we hear, I'm not good at math. It's all right, sweetheart. We got your back. And building up that positive climate on day 1 that then filters throughout the rest of our semester. The way we communicate with them, the way we share fun Einstein emails and test hints. I have a tendency to share little momentary visits from my kids or things. Now, obviously, we don't want to squirrel, meaning we don't need to completely derail 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes worth of our class time. But every single one of us, no matter what we teach, can take a few minutes to build a welcoming environment. Often, you never hear me talk this much in my class straight. I'm always inviting those students to participate. Okay, guys, what's going to come next? What does it mean when this 3 is touching that parentheses? I'm asking them questions of things I know they knew, so that when I ask a question that they already knew, I'm actually building their confidence for the stuff that they don't, because they got a right answer. They didn't have to cry like number 4. I solved it 3 times. I keep getting different answer. I have something completely different. I have no idea what I'm doing. So building that confidence can be something as simple as asking a question that you know they already know the answer to. So that when they get that answer right, they can go, oh, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
I got this.
I got this.
So building that classroom climate.
Okay. Now let's spiral back to our introduction. And I'm going to ask you to reply in the chat. Now, do you see why climate and culture are important? Just yes or no?
No, I'm going to override her. Tell us why it's important.
Okay.
Why do you think it's important to take the time? Because, Doc made the comment earlier, this is kind of the fluffy stuff, right?
Oh,
This
it's
is that
fluffy.
K through 12 stuff. We're in the college world. It is still just as important. And we'd like to hear from you. Why is some of this classroom climate conversation or having a strong classroom culture, why is it important?
And the why is also establishing the relevance.
Yeah.
So you're answering 2 questions in one here. Absolutely, Manuela. It increases individual participation.
I love
Uh,
that. Students need to be comfortable to open their minds to learn. If they're already coming in with their minds closed off and accepting the fact that they're not going to be successful or that it's too hard, it doesn't matter what you're trying to learn. They won't learn it.
Rose, I'm gonna play off of your comment where it says, we let them know that we're approachable. For me, I tell the students they can call me Doc. Because Dr. English in a math class is just a little confusing. And, as we move through their stay at ACC, they knock on my door all the time. Hey, Doc, did you watch the Astros last night? Because I have one class, and every morning during baseball season, we had to talk about the Astros from the night before. So, yes, this is relevant. If students feel comfortable, okay, answer this in the chat. Do you think that it will improve your success rates? If they feel comfortable in the class, they're going to ask you questions, and they're going to ask you questions that they have been scared to ask other teachers in the past. Okay, so yes, I see your responses in the chat. Of course, this is going to boost your success rates. What are the benefits to the students?
Endless.
They will take a mountain of knowledge out of your class, and they will apply it to their lives and to their future coursework. And the impact of that is student success, which are two of the words we hear the most.
All right, I'm gonna once again step out on a limb here, and I hope I don't step on too many toes. If I step on your toes, please know it's nothing personal. This is me being real. A lot of times our students come into our classrooms being unwilling to ask a question. Most of the time it's because in their history, in their past, they asked a question and they felt belittled, or they felt stupid, or they didn't get an answer when they asked that question. So if they ask a question and their instructor says, you should already know that, I'm just going to leave that right there. You just destroyed your classroom culture.
I will step on her toes over here and tell her to hush. And
She knows it's a
and
pet peeve of mine.
tell you that at least 3 times a class, when a student asks a question, I'm going to point out and I'm going to go, that's a really good question. Now,
Absolutely.
that may not mean that the question was really good. That's telling them I'm proud of them for being brave to ask a question, because that was a
Absolutely.
step for them.
Absolutely. And it is totally acceptable to say, hey, that is a fabulous, fabulous question. Give me just a minute. I need to get the class going this. I will be happy to come answer that question to you directly.
And there's nothing wrong with telling a student, hey, see me after class about that question. That's a longer answer, or something like that.
Absolutely.
And so,
Yes, ma'am.
yes,
Thank
Diane,
you.
thank you. We are teaching more than just the content. We are
Trying to.
teaching ways to succeed in future classes.
Absolutely. So to finish us off, y'all talk to us. You have any questions for us? Concerns for us? Tell me I need to get off my soapbox for us. Talk to us.
If you're wanting to know, is there a presentation where Jennifer talks less?
No.
Just ask me, I'll tell you. So
So tell me no.
don't get out of there.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thanks, Rose.
Thank you, Rose. Thank you, Diane.
It helps that we friendly banter like this every day. And so we'll literally walk into each other's classes just to have,
Yeah.
a little mental brain break for the kids.
Okay, we appreciate your thank yous, and those are always welcome, but do you have any questions that we can answer in the time we have left? We are both always open to answering your emails or meeting with you if you need some suggestions that we feel is just the collegial part of our job. Gosh, I hope I said that word right.
Close
And-
enough. Or math. We don't
Yeah.
do words.
We don't do words. Okay.
Honestly, if there's a spot that you feel like your classroom climate, your classroom culture could be enhanced and you're not sure how, we do not have perfect answers, but we can brainstorm with you.
Absolutely. And
Thank you, Alex.
we are always open to looking at your blackboards,
Yes.
you know.
Need a fresh
Maybe-
set of eyes.
Maybe we can get Colby Brazel to look at your blackboards, you know.
I'll volunteer the hubby. You bet.
So anyway, thank y'all for coming. I hope you took something away from this and have a great rest of your day.
I'm gonna stop sharing. Hopefully, this will stop me sharing. Maybe I can stop sharing. Stop sharing.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
We're here.
Thank you.
In the two podcasts. Probably.
Maybe we can do that for stipend money.
We're sassy too, if you can't tell.
Julie, how'd we do with fluff?
Pretty good. Did you stop your recording?
No, we're still fluffing.
Carrie has the recording, so she's the one in charge.
Gonna say she did really great with all the fluffy stuff. I'm excited.